You're with the Breaker-Leggers, and we're in London at the Almeida Theatre
to see James Graham's play, Ink.
So stay tuned to find out how many legs,
whether it's break a leg
or leg it. Before we go any further,
to keep up with all things theatre,
news, reviews, interviews,
and make sure that you've got the finger on the theatrical pulse,
subscribe now. So, Ink. What I do know about this piece is that it's written by James Graham and that we have loved his stuff in the past. What's he done?
Absolutely. We saw This House, which we reviewed as our very first review. That was a James Graham play. What else?
At the Garrick Theatre. He's also done some TV work, always to do with political stuff, such as The Vote, Coalition, and two things he's done.
Seems to be his niche, although recently he did venture over to Broadway to write the book for the musical
Finding Neverland. Of course he did, with music by Gary Barlow.
Sir Gary Barlow.
Sir Gary Barlow.
Ink itself is about the launch of the UK's most influential newspaper, The Sun, and a young Rupert Murdoch's quest to give the reader what they want.
Now that particular part is being played by Bertie Carvel, who originated the role of Mrs. Trunchbull in the musical Matilda.
Yeah, and won an Olivier for that role.
Yes, we saw him here at the Almeida Theatre actually in Bacchae during their Greek season.
Yes, and we also saw him in The Hairy Ape at the Old Vic. He is a real talent.
Yeah, I must say I do like him as an actor, so I'm really looking forward to what he's going to bring to this piece in such an intimate space.
It is a beautifully intimate space, actually. One of our most favourite in London, I would say. Bertie's playing Rupert Murdoch himself, but in the cast is also Richard Coyle playing the editor, Larry Lamb.
And when we say Larry Lamb, we mean the editor Larry Lamb, not the Larry Lamb from Gavin and Stacey.
No, that
different one.
That would be weird.
That would be weird.
Ink is being directed by Almeida artistic director Rupert Goold.
Now, what has Rupert Goold done that we've liked?
Here at the Almeida, he did the recent Richard III.
Which I loved, which
you
starred...
You were a massive fan of that.
Yeah, it was one of the Fiennes. Was it Ralph Fiennes?
Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes, and he was pretty phenomenal.
He also directed the successful on this side of the pond, but pretty unsuccessful on the other side of the pond, American Psycho the Musical.
Oh, yes.
I enjoyed that here. I thought it was great.
Yeah, starring Doctor Who, Matt Smith.
Yeah.
In the lead role, which has been interesting for him, kind of taking on a singing role, but it was a great dynamic production.
So, as mentioned, massive James Graham fans. For me, the man can do no wrong, so let's hope he keeps the ball up with Ink at the Almeida.
We'll catch you at the interval! So we've come to the interval of Ink at the Almeida Theatre, which means it is time for the Breaker-Leggers 30-second interval breakdown! Go! What do you think so far?
Yeah, for me, it's not quite rising to the giddy heights of This House. Yeah, I've got to admit there are some similarities, even though the directorialship is different. There is kind of stage movement and some music in this piece, which there was in This House as well. I am enjoying it so far. I'm interested to see if it keeps pace for the second act. How about you?
I'm loving it. I think the content is great, the themes, seeing the conflict. This writer is good with conflict between the Daily Mirror and the Sun. I'm interested to see what's going to happen next.
So we've come to the end of Ink here at the Almeida, and what did you think of that?
I really enjoyed it. Something they say in the piece is, it's all about a story and everybody loves a good story. And this was a really good story. Yeah,
I think James Graham is a master at kind of pulling out bits of history and kind of weeding out the kind of separating the wheat from the chaff and being left with a really decent and worth telling story.
It's all about the narrative, I think, with James, and he can pick that out and he can tell that narrative extremely well. I mean, it's basically about the Sun newspaper.
Gotta say, Richard Coyle as Larry Lamb, what a performer.
Really good.
Without exception, to be honest, the cast were exceptional. I felt like I was really, living the lives of these characters. I felt totally absorbed by their performances. The reality and the truth of it is some of the best stage work I've seen.
Yeah, and that comes also down to the writing. They've got good stuff to work with. The director as well, presenting it in a real dynamic way. Many of the cast as well, there's 13 of them. Many of them double up to be more than one part as well, being on both sides of the Sun newspaper and also rival newspapers as well. Just played extremely well, drawn into the drama, the way it's told, incorporating music. I thought the use of music was great. Sound effects, driving forward with the sound, the lighting changes were brilliant. What did you think of the set?
Yeah, I loved the set. The set was stunning. Much like, I would call it a journalistic Les Mis barricade. Really, that's what the set kind of resembled.
Yes.
Going back to the story slightly, it's very easy to draw comparisons between this house and this piece and Ink, because the setting is very similar, the method of storytelling, the conflict kind of resolution feel is very, very similar as well. I have to say, for me, it didn't feel like there was as much at stake as it did with this house. With this house, it's the future of the country. With Ink, it's a success of a newspaper. It's personal wealth. It's, is it that important? Probably not compared to what was told in this house.
I guess it's, for me, it wasn't as important. I think for me it's more the revelation of how did it come about. I took for granted that page 3 wasn't a thing, and that how big a decision that was to take, and who
and the
would
reasons
have upset.
it was made.
And the bold reasons it was made, kind of how Larry Lamb, what he did, pulling no punches and saying, do you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do, regardless, I will be successful and I will win.
It's about
he took
greed.
A risk.
The piece is about greed. It's about wanting to be the best, no matter what the cost is. Having personal vendetta can drive a business to the highest of highs. I mean, history has showed us since then, Rupert Murdoch, we know that he's ruthless. He's one of the most hated men in the world, and that's because he does not care one iota for who gets hurt in the process of him being the man.
Yeah, it's about resilience and just moving forwards regardless of what other people are doing, what other people think, just having your one goal set in place and moving towards that, almost not even caring about who you hurt in the process.
I'm going back to the set is Bunny Christie.
Now Bunny's done a few things,
she's phenomenal. I love her work. She did Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time,
which is National Theatre transferred into the West End,
People,
UK
Places
tour,
and Things.
People, Places and
Exactly
Things
same,
again,
National
Theatre,
West End,
UK tour, Curious Incident into Broadway as well.
She is fantastic.
Yeah.
People, Places and Things going over to Broadway too.
She's very, very good.
So talented.
A great use of projection as well. Use of a trapdoor that the Almeida has here as well, so it moves seamlessly from scene to scene.
Yep, really enjoyable few hours out, and I would sit through it again.
Although it did, if I'm honest, it did drag a little bit in the second act. I think it's a 2-act piece, and each act is an hour and 15 minutes. The first act flew by for me. The second act, I did feel as if there was a little bit where it dipped ever so slightly.
So, I bet you're wondering how many legs we are going to give Ink.
So, for Ink at the Almeida Theatre, we are going to give 4 legs for Ink.
Yeah, for me, not quite rising to the dizzy heights of this house. Didn't feel like there was that much at stake as there is in that piece when it's the future of the country, but still such a well-observed piece.
Enjoyable and an education, which is kind of why I love theatre as well. We've said this many times before. Theatre is an education, learning about history, having it presented in an incredible, dynamic way.
So we're the Breaker Leggers, that's what we thought. What did you think? Like, subscribe, leave us a comment, follow us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll catch you again soon.
Bye!